All right, joining me now in the studio is Ambassador Yashvardhan Sinha. He is a former Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka and the United Kingdom. Ambassador Sinha, welcome to DD India News Hour. Now, what can you tell us about Anurag Kumar Dissanayake, the man and his politics?
Well, it's a very interesting past that he has. He is a veteran leader of the JVP, Janata Vimukti Peramuna. But he took over the leadership of the party, I think, about 2008, if I'm not mistaken. And he has been a member of parliament, including, he's also been a minister, briefly, a minister for agriculture in President Chandrika Kumaratunga's tenure. So he is experienced. Of course, the party that he represents, the JVP, has had a very interesting past, as you're perhaps aware. They led an armed insurrection against the Sri Lankan state in 1971. And then in 1987-89. But from all accounts, AKD, as he's called, is a changed person. He is obviously more moderate now. His statements are more moderate. And for whatever little we saw when he had come to India in February, I think it'd be interesting to see how he approaches foreign relations. And of course, the biggest item on his agenda is the economy and how he renegotiates with the IMF.
We've spoken about the man himself. What about his party? Now, what can you tell us about Dissanayake's Janata Vimukti Peramuna, the JVP party, its ideological moorings? And what does the JVP actually stand for?
So the JVP is a Marxist-Leninist party. Its ideology is Marxist-Leninist. But it has evolved over the years.
Okay.
And it was a revolutionary party. It indulged in violence, in an armed insurrection, but it is now very much part of the mainstream. It has taken part in elections. It didn't fare too well. As you heard, there were just 3 MPs in the outgoing or in the current parliament right now. And he contested the elections in 2019 against Gotabaya Rajapaksa and didn't do very well. So they have been in active politics, but they represent the Sinhala Buddhist constituency, which the Rajapaksas also represented, but they are left-leaning, far more left-leaning than what the SLFP, the original SLFP and the SLPP are today.
Sinha, women account for more than 50% of the electorate in Sri Lanka. During the campaign, a lot of talk about how there was no woman candidate running for president. Now, by appointing a woman prime minister, do you think Sri Lanka and Dissanayake both have redeemed themselves to a fair degree?
I think the women generally are well represented, not necessarily in parliament or in politics, but the status of women in Sri Lanka is very good. And of course, you've had Prime Minister Sri Mavo Bandaranaike as one of the first Prime Minister in this part of the world, if not in the world, I think. And you've had her daughter Chandrika. So you've had precedents of women ministers and women prime ministers and presidents. But yes, given the very small pool that the JVP had to choose from, I think Professor Harini Amarasuriya is a very good choice. Incidentally, she's an alumnus of Hindu College, Delhi. So I think she enjoys a good reputation. And as Prime Minister, she has a very challenging task ahead of her.
Sinha, what do you make of the challenges before President Dissanayake? What will it take to steer the country out of its troubles?
Well, to quite some extent, outgoing President Ranil Wickremesinghe, the last 2 years, has managed to stabilize the economy. He reached an agreement with the extended fund facility with the IMF for $2.9 billion. And I think to a large extent, he had put the economy back on track. It still is a long way to go. The problem is that when you implement IMF conditionalities, there are certain measures which are not necessarily very popular with the electorate, austerity measures that you take, and it hits the common man. So I think that is reflected, I guess, in the way they have fared in the elections. So I think President Dissanayake will basically try and see how he can ameliorate the conditions of the common man.
And finally, Ambassador Sinha, what will Sri Lanka's foreign policy look like under President Dissanayake?
Well, I expect that it would be a balanced foreign policy. I think there were fears that because of the ideological moorings of his party and his own ideological moorings, perhaps he would tilt towards one country to the left, etc. But I think as president, and he's indicated that he believes that India is a very important partner. He recognizes and acknowledges the assistance that we have given Sri Lanka, particularly in its time of need when no other country or institution really stepped up to the plate. We were the first responder. And when he was here in February, his statements also indicated that he wants a close relationship with India. So that is good news for us.
Indeed. On that note, Ambassador Sinha, thank you for joining us and sharing your thoughts and views with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you for
it.
having me.